Thank you so much to everyone who left movie recommendations on the Cool Runnings video. I wrote them all down and let's move this closer. I started going down the list to see which ones are streaming in Canada right now. And when I checked for Kickboxer, I saw that it's leaving Prime Video here at the end of the year, the end of the month, the end of the year, same thing. So it was a no-brainer to watch it next. I was also super interested because not only does it star the muscles from Brussels, Jean-Claude Van Damme, but also I've practiced Muay Thai myself. So there's a bit of personal interest there. So thank you very much to Mike who suggested this movie. And guys, don't forget to leave more recommendations in the comments. I'm reading them all and I'm making a list. Now, let's talk about Kickboxer. Right from the opening song, I was in for the ride because it opens with The Streets of Siam by Stan Bush, and it's just this synthy power pop. I should mention that this is a 1989 movie directed by David Worth, who, by the way, wrote and directed a movie called Warrior of the Lost World, I think, which has this amazing poster. I'm going to pop it up right here. Very curious about that one. But yeah, the movie opens with The Streets of Siam, just setting the tone. It kind of goes like, everybody loves a winner. Everyone can see that I am. Everybody loves a winner. Cruising through the streets of Siam. So good. Absolute banger. And then we meet the brothers, Kurt, played by Van Damme, and Eric, who's played by Dennis Alexio. And Alexio was actually a real kickboxer, a champion, in fact, a title holder. And right away, I'm wondering why these brothers have different accents. If you've seen a Van Damme movie before, you know that the accent was always there. If you wanted Van Damme, you accepted the accent. And thankfully, as I'm wondering this, they sort of slip it into the dialogue that their parents split and they grew up each with one parent, and Kurt Van Damme was in Europe with their mom, while Eric was in America, being turned into a tough guy by his dad. So that question is answered, and doesn't really come up again. They mention it a few times throughout the movie, but it's not at all important to the plot. They just needed to explain away the accent. Pretty quickly we meet Winston too. I liked Winston. He was played by Haskell Anderson. And, okay, beyond the sort of tokenism, he's a really developed character. I mean, he has more backstory than Van Damme's character, to be fair. And he's sort of like the voice of reason. Glove is extra crackly today. I don't know how loud it is for you. So Eric is fighting this guy, Tongbo, who in the credits is credited as himself. And that made me very curious, because I thought there's no way that like a real professional fighter or anyone would, well, I mean, maybe there's a way, but I highly doubted that someone would play themselves in the role of, you know, this antagonist, this awful, awful man. I mean, he does some really bad things in the movie. So I looked him up, and actually he was played by this Belgian Moroccan actor named Michel Kisi. He sort of grew up with Van Damme and started doing martial arts at a young age, just like Van Damme. So maybe they were trying to hide the fact that he was not Asian, although I don't know if realistically, unfortunately, you know, that was a real concern in the 80s, but Tongpo. They're fighting, and it's going poorly for Eric. So Kurt Van Damme is his cornerman, and he throws in the towel. But Tongpo is like, nah, I'm not having any of this. So he keeps fighting and ends up paralyzing Eric. And the movie is essentially like a revenge plot. When Kurt wants to avenge Eric by fighting Tongpo. Let's talk about the soundtrack a little bit more, because they really front load the hits in this movie. There's Fight for Love, also by Stan Bush. There's How Do You Keep Me Coming Back? Oh, that's a tune. It's like how do you keep me coming back to you, guitar solo. Wow, 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 wow. That one's going on my gym playlist for sure. I don't know who actually performs it, but it has a very sort of like Joan Jett sort of vibe. Like the Runaways, that kind of thing. There's a Roll with the Punches, which has a sax solo. Yeah, great soundtrack. And at this point, we're like in the training montages. There's a cute side gag where Jean, who's like his Mr. Miyagi, this movie mirrors the Karate Kid very well. They're training, and his trainer, his teacher is like, here, this will help you run faster. And he's holding up some raw meat. And it's actually shot very well, because it cuts to him running with the meat tied to his waist. And I'm thinking, okay, like weight training? And then with just the perfect timing, Sean's dog Kiki comes in and runs up behind Kurt. It's very well done, that one. Very well shot. We also meet John's niece, Miley. And he's said she might help with the training. So I was hoping that she'd be like this badass fighter girl. But no, you can hear Ron Howard's voice going, she wasn't. She just like nurses his wounds and stuff. Then we get to see what they call Stone City, which I think was shot in the temples at Ayutawa, which also stars in like Mortal Kombat and that kind of movie. But, it's just a beautiful setting. And there's this recurring bit where Jean asks him, are you ready to protect? And he sort of like drops a weight on Kurt's abs. And that reminded me of when I was doing Muay Thai. And they had us do what they said were Thai sit-ups, which is basically where you do a sit-up, but as you're coming up, you punch your abs, your thighs, and do we do our shins? I just remember 3 punches. Abs, thighs. It was probably the shins, if not just the thighs again. And so with every sit-up, you would be like hitting your muscles. And they used to say that would help, like strengthen your muscles for exactly that same reason, to protect yourself. Sometimes you'll see, like, I love watching training videos from like Tiger Muay Thai and stuff like that. And a lot of Muay Thai gyms, they'll have like a trainer just slapping you with a pad right on the abs every time you go down from a sit-up. So I guess I had it easy, but it brought back some fun memories. I really do miss Muay Thai. Then about halfway through the movie, I'm thinking, I guess there's only going to be one big fight scene at the end, because he's still just training with Xian. And like clockwork, the bar scene comes on. Now, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. If you have not, I won't spoil it for you. But obviously there's a bit of fighting now. And this is just basically Van Damme showing off some moves and some sequences that he thinks are cool. He choreographed the fight scenes in the movie. So, of course, like, he has to get the splits in there, and it's all a bit goofy. This movie is a little campy, but if you embrace the camp, then I think you'll enjoy the movie. So now all of this leads to a fight for Van Damme, for Kurt. So I get my wish. I do think the movie would have benefited, though, from a Muay Thai fighter choreographing the fights. But now we're getting into the action of the movie. There's a scene where he kicks clay pots, again in training. He kicks clay pots, and that was a pretty cool scene. They're hanging and they're filled with water, probably to no practical effect, but it's a cool sight. But yeah, around the 1 hour mark is where things really pick up. They mention the ancient way of fighting Muay Thai, which is to wrap your hands in rope, to dip them. It was in the movie they did it with the back of the hand, dipped in honey, and then dipped in broken glass, which absolutely never happened in real life. Like that is not the ancient way of the Muay Thai fighter, but it did make for a very exciting finale. Then you see him like training in Stone City at dusk. With Xian has like these burning sticks that he's waving around. I'm like, heck yeah, it's a really cool shot. Then we finally see the character that I wish I was most like, and that is Tao Liu, the Master Warlord, and I'll pop up a couple pictures of him on the screen, and you'll understand why. Hopefully, you'll understand why. He's just the coolest dude. He doesn't really matter in the story at all, which is even more of a reason to wish to be like him. You know, just on the fringe, looking good, living life. And then we find out that the final fight will take place in an old underground tomb, I think is how they describe it, and I'm all in. We find out Freddie Lee is betting $1 million on Tong Po, and he's borrowing it from the warlord, and it never comes up again, but I am excited. It turns out the underground ring, the underground venue is pretty cool. And this is where you might want to click out of the video if you don't want to be spoiled. But you can probably guess where this is going, but I'll still give you a moment. Oh, what did I do last time? I like this. So, Tong Po does like the badass villain thing where he licks some of the honey and the broken glass off of his hand. So, you know he's a crazy boy. At one point in the fight, Kurt gives Tong Po a kick in the abdomen that sort of like sends him reeling back. And that also reminded me of early on in my training, like really early. Like we were just learning front kicks. And I was like practicing with someone. I was wearing the belly pad, and my ajahn comes around, and you know he's sort of giving us tips on how to push off for a front kick, for a push kick. And since I'm wearing the belly pad, I'm the chosen one for the demonstration. And Ajahn just gives me what looked to him like a zero effort tap on the belly, and I literally went flying back. I think I even like got off the mat. I didn't fall, but there was so much force, and to be fair, I wasn't really bracing. I'll give myself some credit. And yeah, I took off. Then redemption moment. He looks very cool walking into the warehouse, sort of like with the smoke behind him. And he goes, traffic was a mess. There's a big fight in town. Winston! Then back to the fight, and the glass finally comes into play, which is very exciting. Then we get the Naksukao chant. You gotta have a chant. White warrior. And then he's like, Miley, cut these ropes. For no discernible reason other than to just look badass. Tough as heck, that guy. Then Van Damme starts fighting a little dirty. But it's an underground fight, so why not? And talk about fighting dirty. Tong Po brings fire into the ring. And then Van Damme sort of hits him with that double punch to the abdomen. Then we take the fight outside of the ring. And a little kick to the face to finish him off. And then I thought that a fight with Lee was going to follow. Lee and his goons. But instead, without lowering his leg after kicking Tong Po, he just kicks Lee and knocks him out. So that was a nice subversion of my expectations. And in retrospect, all the goons had already been taken care of by Winston and Xian, so. And then we end on another banger. Stan Bush, Never Surrender. Roll credits. But that's it. That is it for me rambling about Kickboxer. Let me know in the comments what I should watch next. And I'll see you tomorrow.